This episode is about Queen Hatshepsut, the mother of King Amenhotep II. Hatshepsut Merit Ra, beloved of Amun, or Hatshepsut, the favorite consort of Amun above all ladies, or the beloved consort of Amun, jewel of the princesses. She is one of the most prominent and influential queens who ruled Egypt. Her reign was a remarkable milestone not only in the history of the 18th dynasty, but also in the history of ancient Egypt as a whole. Don't forget to support us, my friend. Please subscribe to the channel and like the video. Hatshepsut was born in 1508 BCE as the eldest daughter of King Thutmose I and Queen Ahmose. She was an ancient Egyptian queen and ruler, the fifth in the sequence of the 18th dynasty of Egypt. Hatshepsut initially ruled as a regent for the young King Thutmose III, after the death of her husband, King Thutmose II. Later, she declared herself pharaoh, presenting herself as the daughter of the god Amun. She propagated a story, inscribed in her temple at Deir el-Bahari, claiming she was conceived from a divine union between Amun and her mother, Queen Thutmose I. The historian Manetho mistakenly places her after Amenhotep I in the middle of the 18th dynasty. King Thutmose I, renowned for his great victory in liberating Egypt from the Hyksos, is the great-grandfather of Hatshepsut and the founder of the 18th dynasty to which she belongs. Hatshepsut was the legitimate heir to the throne of Egypt, as there was no lawful male successor. However, she had a half-brother, Thutmose II, born to her father and a secondary wife named Mutnofret. Hatshepsut received an education in ethics and proper conduct, along with studies in reading, writing, mathematics, philosophy, religious rituals, grammar, and composition. Like her peers, she had to diligently study and pass on the wisdom of the ancient Egyptian sages. Her peers included her half-brother Thutmose II, young princes and princesses, as well as children of ministers and noble families. Undoubtedly, Hatshepsut feared her teacher, who instructed his students with strict and sometimes harsh methods, regardless of their status. This was a prime example of the justice applied equally to all, without fear or favoritism, a fundamental principle of Egyptian society at the time. Hatshepsut was not entitled to any special privileges in her treatment. The royal school in Pharaoh's palace operated like any other school in the country, beginning early in the morning and ending at noon, much like many schools in Egypt today. Hatshepsut married her half-brother, Thutmose II, following the customary practice of the pharaohs. Thutmose II had no other path to secure the throne except by marrying Hatshepsut. Together, they had a son and two daughters. Unfortunately, the son died in childhood, leaving no trace of his name on any monuments. The daughters were named Neferura and Meritra Hatshepsut. Thutmose II also fathered a son, Thutmose III, with one of the royal harem's concubines, who was named Iset. The path to power was not paved with ease or adorned with roses for Hatshepsut. She faced with determination and defiance a patriarchal society and a male-dominated religious authority that refused to see a ruler as anything other than a man. Hatshepsut entered a challenging phase of her life at the age of 20, upon the death of her father, Thutmose I. She had previously co-ruled with her father and was the legitimate heir to the throne. Therefore, it was reasonable to expect her to succeed Thutmose I as pharaoh. However, the traditions of the royal court and the intrigues of the priests began to interfere, as the idea of a woman ruling and holding all authority was not to their liking. For this reason, it became inevitable for her half-brother, Thutmose II, to be made a co-ruler. He was a frail, inexperienced man with little aptitude for managing the affairs of the state. Thus, he was installed as pharaoh, while she was relegated to the role of a mere royal wife, with no greater status than that. There was no benefit in protesting, as all circumstances were against her. Plans were set in motion for her marriage to Thutmose II, thus granting him the legitimacy to rule. We know little about Thutmose II's short reign, except for a rebellion that arose in the south. However, instead of leading the army himself and marching against the enemies, as his father had done, he issued orders to his soldiers to deal with the rebels with utmost severity. Thutmose II was a weak individual, and he may have been ill at the same time. In reality, it was Hatshepsut who managed the affairs of the state and ruled the country in his name from behind the scenes. She held true authority and decision-making power. Before long, it became evident that he was nearing the end of his life. Courtiers and senior officials began to wonder what would happen upon his death. There was no other prince capable of succeeding him on the throne, making it increasingly likely that she would eventually rule the country on her own. Her supporters, who recognized her abilities and strength, were delighted at the prospect and were fully prepared to serve her with loyalty when the time came. However, her husband, Thutmose II, wanted to grant his son, Thutmose III, the right to inherit the throne after him. There was someone conspiring with the temple of Amun at Karnak, stirring public sentiment among the priests and the people against the idea of a woman ruling them. This person was none other than Thutmose III himself, who was living in the temple as one of its priests. Thutmose II died in 1501 BCE. Shortly after his death, during a ceremony at the temple where Hatshepsut was present to witness a procession carrying the statue of the god Amun, an extraordinary event occurred. The platform bearing the statue of Amun stopped in front of a young priest and refused to move any further. All those present agreed that this was a divine sign, indicating that Amun had chosen this individual to share the rule. The young priest before whom the platform halted was none other than Thutmose III, the son of her deceased husband. On the 3rd day of May, 1501 BCE, Thutmose left his position as a junior priest in the temple of Amun to enter the royal palace of the pharaohs. At that time, Hatshepsut was 34 years old. From the very first day, competition and bitterness prevailed between them. Hatshepsut wasted no time in gathering supporters and forming an alliance in her favor. This faction quickly gained influence and grew so powerful that the inexperienced pharaoh became completely incapable of ruling the country. He was eventually forced to step aside for Hatshepsut. Finally, in 1478 BCE, Hatshepsut was proclaimed ruler of both Upper and Lower Egypt, governing the country and its foreign territories alone as pharaoh. In the praise songs sung in her honor, she was referred to as the Female Horus, with the feminine marker added to the word denoting majesty. The royal cartouches bearing Hatshepsut's name, inscribed on the walls of Deir el-Bahari, Karnak, and other locations across Egypt, were explicit in their meanings. Next to her name were titles such as King of Upper and Lower Egypt, Daughter of the Sun, Friend of Amun, Hatshepsut, the Golden Horus, Granter of Years, Goddess of Radiance, Conqueror of all lands, she who revives hearts, the mighty lady. This moment marked her triumph. According to the ancient Egyptian historian Manetho, her reign lasted 21 years and 9 months. This raises the question, what did Hatshepsut do with Thutmose III after overthrowing him? Some might assume that she killed him or exiled him to a distant place outside Egypt. However, the truth is that she entrusted the education and upbringing of the young pharaoh, who had previously been a junior priest, to a military training regimen. She taught him the arts of statecraft and governance, enabling him to lead military campaigns against rebels challenging Egyptian authority abroad during the later years of her reign. After her death, Thutmose III ascended to the throne, solidifying his legitimacy by marrying her daughter, Meritra Hatshepsut. He went on to become one of the most powerful warrior pharaohs in Egypt's history, establishing the first and strongest Egyptian empire ever known. Hatshepsut's reign, however, was renowned for peace and prosperity. She made significant efforts to foster diplomatic and, especially, trade relations with the ancient Near Eastern states to avoid conflicts with them. Hatshepsut's reign was marked by peace and prosperity. Her era was distinguished by the strength of the army, active construction projects, and grand naval expeditions sent to trade with neighboring lands. Under the rule of the female pharaoh, Egypt flourished and grew wealthy. She reopened quarries and mines that had been neglected for a long time, particularly the copper and malachite mines in the Sinai Peninsula. These mines had ceased operation during the Hyksos occupation of Egypt and the subsequent period. In Sinai, a stele still stands, inscribed with records praising her achievements in reviving these activities. Hatshepsut also revitalized Egypt's trade with its neighbors, which had been in decline, especially during the reign of Thutmose II. She restored the use of a canal connecting the Nile near the delta's end to the Red Sea. This canal, originally dug during the Middle Kingdom, was cleaned and reopened under her orders to allow Egypt's naval fleet to sail through it into the Gulf of Suez and then into the Red Sea. Hatshepsut commissioned numerous construction projects, including additions to the Karnak Temple and her magnificent mortuary temple, Deir el-Bahari in Luxor. Hatshepsut paid great attention to Egypt's commercial fleet, commissioning the construction of large ships. These vessels were utilized for domestic transport, particularly to move the obelisks she ordered to be added to the Karnak Temple in honor of the god Amun. They were also used for trade expeditions with neighboring lands. Her reign was marked by luxury in Egypt, with increased demand for luxury goods brought by the trade fleets from nearby countries. These included incense, perfumes, spices, tropical plants and trees, exotic animals and skins. Queen Hatshepsut sent a large fleet to the Atlantic Ocean, boosting trade with the region to import rare species of fish. She also dispatched a trade expedition aboard large ships navigating the Red Sea, carrying Egyptian goods such as papyrus and linen to the Land of Punt, modern-day Somalia and southern Yemen. The king of Punt received the expedition warmly, and it returned to Egypt laden with vast quantities of exotic animals, timber, incense, ebony, ivory, skins, and precious stones. Hatshepsut immortalized the story of this expedition on the walls of her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari on the west bank of the Nile in Luxor. The colors adorning the temple's depictions remain vibrant and remarkably well preserved to this day, showcasing their enduring beauty and craftsmanship. The Aswan expedition, the walls of the Temple of Deir el-Bahari, also depict Queen Hatshepsut's expedition to the granite quarries at Aswan to procure massive stones for construction projects. She commissioned the creation of 2 enormous obelisks of granite in honor of the god Amun, each weighing approximately 35 tons. These obelisks were transported via the Nile to Thebes and placed in the Temple of Karnak in Luxor. During Napoleon's expedition to Egypt in 1799, he ordered one of the obelisks to be transported to France. Today, it adorns the Place de la Concorde in Paris, the capital of France. Historians and engineers remain amazed to this day by the ancient Egyptians' ability to transport the obelisks from Aswan to Luxor. The process of loading the obelisks onto ships, transporting them along the Nile, unloading them, and then moving them overland to their designated locations was no small feat. Even more impressive was the precise placement of the obelisks in front of the pylon that Queen Hatshepsut constructed at the Temple of Karnak, just a few meters from the pylon itself. Modern engineers continue to theorize about the methods employed by ancient Egyptian engineers to accomplish this monumental task. Moreover, Hatshepsut issued orders for the creation of an obelisk that would have been the largest in human history, carved from a single stone weighing over 1,000 tons, to be placed in the Temple of Karnak. However, the project was abandoned after a crack was discovered in the obelisk, rendering it unsuitable for use. Today, tourists from all over the world visit the site to marvel at this unfinished obelisk in the Aswan quarry, asking themselves how the ancient Egyptians planned to transport this massive monument to the Temple of Karnak. A German Egyptologist described the ancient Egyptians' stone-cutting methods, stating that they worked with stone as if it were butter. This craftsmanship can still be observed in the Aswan quarry, where the unfinished obelisk, now known as the unfinished obelisk, remains a testament to their extraordinary skill. During the reign of Hatshepsut, peace, prosperity, and flourishing trade with neighboring countries were predominant, as she did not favor a policy of external conquest. However, a few military campaigns were recorded during her time, most of which were punitive expeditions. Additionally, one military campaign attributed to Hatshepsut, carried out by Thutmose III, involved the capture of Gaza near the end of her reign. Some manuscripts, such as one found in the tomb of Senmut, reveal details about punitive campaigns in Nubia and other territories under Egyptian control as follows. A punitive campaign in Nubia at the beginning of her reign, led by Hatshepsut herself, as recorded by the chief treasurer, Tai. A punitive campaign in Syria and Palestine, according to a manuscript found at Deir el-Bahari, which also mentions a campaign against a rebellion in Nubia. A campaign against a rebellion in Nubia in the 20th year of her reign. A punitive campaign against the region of Mao near Furka between the 20th and 22nd years of her reign. Hatshepsut did not wish to introduce a new appearance for the ruling pharaoh that people had become accustomed to for decades. Although at the beginning of her reign she was depicted as a woman adorned with her full feminine beauty, later she came to embody the image of a strong, muscular pharaoh wearing a ceremonial false beard. She began donning attire similar to that of her male predecessors during official ceremonies and appeared in some statues with the characteristic false beard, as was customary for pharaohs. This, however, did not diminish her femininity or her attributes as a beautiful woman. Hatshepsut was described as having a soft, tawny complexion, a slightly aquiline nose, and a round face. She had a deep love for flowers, gardens, trees, and everything fragrant and vividly colorful. Senemut remains a captivating enigma in the life of Hatshepsut. This architect, who built her famous temple at Deir el-Bahari, was granted 80 titles by her and was entrusted with the upbringing and education of her young daughter, Princess Neferura. His devotion to his queen was such that he dug a tunnel connecting her tomb to his own, wishing to remain close to her in the afterlife just as he was in life. Hatshepsut, in turn, admired his brilliance and strong character to the extent that she allowed him to build his tomb within the sacred precinct of her temple so that they could be near each other in death as they were in life. Some historians hint at the possibility of a romantic connection between Hatshepsut and Senemut following the death of her husband. However, this remains unconfirmed and may have been no more than a relationship of mutual respect. The royal architect Senemut was the mastermind behind Hatshepsut's most magnificent mortuary temple, an unparalleled achievement in both ancient and modern history. The temple at Deir el-Bahari was built into the embrace of the Western Mountain, constructed from royal white limestone sourced from Tura. Designed as 3 ascending terraces, it was crafted to allow the queen's spirit to ascend to the heavens and be immortalized among the stars. One of the most famous queens to rule Egypt and considered one of its beauties, Hatshepsut was the first to wear gloves. This was due to a congenital deformity in her fingers, having 6 or more fingers on one hand. This fact only became known after her mummy was examined. In most of the statues made of her, her hands appeared normal because she instructed sculptors to depict them that way. She was also the first to adorn gloves with gemstones. Hatshepsut passed away on the 10th day of the 2nd month of the season of Akhet, which corresponds to January 14th, 1457 BCE, during the 22nd year of her reign. This date was recorded on an inscription found on a stela in Armand. The examination of Hatshepsut's mummy confirmed that her death was due to natural causes, likely resulting from cancer or diabetes. Hatshepsut's tomb is located in the Valley of the Kings, designated as KV20. It is believed that she expanded her father's tomb to use it herself, as her sarcophagus was found alongside her father's. Recently, a photo of Queen Hatshepsut's mummy was taken, showing her with a serene, dreamy smile, as if she had fulfilled her mission perfectly and was finally at peace. Interestingly, the photo also revealed that the queen had beautiful, smooth and colored hair, demonstrating the remarkable skill of ancient Egyptian mummification. This art, if fully uncovered, could revolutionize burial practices worldwide. Regardless of Queen Hatshepsut's reign, she remains one of the few women in the ancient world who ascended to the highest level of governance in their nations. She exerted great effort to convince the men of her time to accept her as a woman ruling over them. Whether or not she succeeded in persuading them What she achieved was far greater than what some male kings accomplished. Hatshepsut, meaning foremost of noble ladies, 1508 to 1458 BCE, was the fifth pharaoh of Egypt's 18th dynasty. Egyptologists regard her as one of the most successful pharaohs, holding the title longer than any other woman in Egypt's dynastic history. Her reign was marked by a strong military, significant architectural achievements, and grand naval expeditions sent to trade with neighboring lands. She was the eldest daughter of Pharaoh Thutmose I and Queen Ahmose. Her father had a son, Thutmose II, born out of wedlock, and Hatshepsut accepted marriage to him, as was customary in royal families, to co-rule after her father's death and resolve the issue of a legitimate heir. Don't forget to support us, my friend. Please subscribe to the channel and like the video.